So excited to be here with all of you guys. Cyrena and I have just been having such a blast, really digging in and getting deep into our own personal experiences of the different topics we have been reaching with this series. And today we are talking about authenticity. And this is one of my passions. Actually, this is what I love to work with, people who are feeling stuck, scared, hiding in protection, in survival, and how to really break free of that and claim what you authentically feel in the moment so you can be free to express fully and boldly. So I'd love to
Yay.
start actually and ask you, Cyrena, like check in, slow down, and let's get authentic. What is present for you right now?
Mm, Well,
Hmm.
I've been staying at this really really home for about the last month, and I have to leave it in 2 days.
Hmm.
So I'm noticing there is a feeling of um, just some anxiety. I'm being with whenever I'm in a transition, I definitely it's easier for me to get into patterns that I might do to cope, or what I might even call as trauma patterns. And yeah, so I've been noticing really kind of being more in connection with that, and oh, it's harder for me to do things because I'm not going to have stability in a little bit, or the stability that I'm used to. So it's interesting to see how that plays out, in how well I can or cannot take care of myself. When I'm anxious around a transition, it's a lot easier for me to not take care of myself, and it actually takes extra effort to do that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that and what you're feeling and what's present for you right now. That I totally get. I hear that the perception of lack of stability has you like not be able to operate as efficiently as you would like, and that it can be distracting and kind of pull you out of like your healthiest, the healthiest version of yourself, that you can go into almost even trauma patterns. I get that. That's super real. And I just want to point out that what I feel in response to Cyrena being authentic with what is present for her has me feel really way more connected to you in this moment. That it's easier for me to actually put my own stuff aside and just be with you and be present with you, and have compassion and empathy for what you're going through. That I understand that feeling as well. So thank you for wanting to connect with me by being authentic.
Yay, thank you. What beautiful would that be if everyone always got that kind of response in their relationships? I feel like you just actually offered a great example of how to respond to authenticity. And I want to share that you literally just went through kind of a list of the benefits of authenticity. So we can come back to that. And because I want to hold space for whatever is authentic for you right now.
Thank you. Well, what's most present right now is that I'm feeling really connected, which really like opens up my really calms and relaxes my nervous system. And I think before I got a chance to really drop in and connect with you, what I was feeling was what I would recognize as an authentic experience, although it might not necessarily be true. The reality that I had been living in my survival strategies were that I'm stressed out. Oh my God, I made us late. I didn't time manage. Ah, crap. Oh, there's tech difficulties. Now I'm feeling anxious. What if I'm not ready? What if I'm not good enough? Are people going to judge me? I'm feeling really insecure. I look like crap. I didn't have time to get ready. Oh, now I'm a victim. Oh my God. Oh, I have no time. I have no, oh, poor me. And then the split side of what's authentic for me, if I can tune in and get back centered and grounded and healthy, is that I have had a great morning. I got my vaccination today for COVID, my first dose. I almost feel like a superhero, this like lifted, weighted relief. of feeling like the cloud is starting to lift of isolation. I'm really filled with a ton of gratitude for just living in a place where that's available to me. I have a lot of friends in Canada who just don't have an option for that right now. I've been really productive today, which has me feel strong and capable. I'm dealing with some family trauma that I got really triggered about today. And I'm really proud of myself and noticing all the work that I've done and how far I've come. And I'm just giving myself love in this moment. And so that's what's authentic for the healthiest version of myself. And more than anything, what feels good for me and what's present for me right now is connecting with people, connecting with some support I've had this morning, connecting with Cyrena, and connecting here with all of you. So thank you for holding me and us and for being here with us. And I'm excited to get even more authentic.
Thank you for sharing, Bre.
Hmm.
Yeah, and even in hearing you say that similarly, I now feel even more connected to you, and like I have more ability to understand how to even connect with you more, which I think is the beauty of being vulnerable in general and also sharing authentically. And to bridge this to relationships, I think a lot of people do have a lot of fear around being authentic in their relationships. So it's really beautiful that you and I could kind of set the tone with our example right now, and then move into how that's created and why that's created. And I think what is interesting to me is like what makes authenticity more receivable, because sometimes I think people are afraid. What's the fear? Why? Which I would actually love like questions around from people. Um, and then the other piece is just like, what is the most ideal way to continue to cultivate that sense of authenticity in relating, or what are some tools that you do? How do you invite that?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Serena. So I think a way to show up authentically and have it be easier to connect with others is so the examples that I just give on what was authentic in my experience right now, there were two versions of that, right? There was the victim, the excuse maker, the stressed out, right? Those were authentic experiences for me. And they're experiences that might be authentic for me, but are much harder for you to connect to, because when I'm in a survival state and I'm reacting, although it might feel authentic, it's not actually what's true underneath. What's happening underneath, where I could say all of those things again, but I could come at them from the angle as I'm feeling really insecure. Um, my belief in myself that I'm not good enough has me think that you might you might believe it too, right? And that's not your truth. That's my experience. And then I might ask for something I need, like, are you able to offer me any reassurance right now that it's okay that I showed up a little late and that I maybe put too much on my plate, and I'm not using it as an excuse because it's really important for me to be present here with you. I want to hold myself accountable for that. And something that I would do in the future is really try to better manage my time. And I really welcome you to call me out on it and hold me accountable, because those are the kind of people that I want to have in my life who I know will lovingly help elevate me into healthier relating. And I would really be grateful for that as well.
Oh, that's
So
so
that
beautiful.
that would be way more connective, right? Than just being a victim or being protective or reactive. That what's underneath all of that is that's the authentic bit, right? That's like the heart-centered space that people can connect to much more easily.
Yeah, I love that. And it's again, it's that element of owning your vulnerability and where it comes from, owning that authenticity. No one can really argue with that. I think that's like a key element here, is that when I'll say I or we get into any kind of defensiveness, I think it's more easily arguable, which then more creates more opportunity to lead to like frustration and discord, depending on how well people can navigate argument, which is another thing and something that I cover a lot. Um, and like when you just speak to what your experience is, what you're feeling, and where it's coming from, I think the beauty of that is not only does it create more opportunity for that person to connect with you, it also isn't something that anyone can challenge you on. Like no one can tell you how you feel. No one can be like, oh, well, you don't feel that way, or that's not true, that's not how you feel. You know, with like actions or dynamics, I think it's easier to argue. But what I heard also in you say is that extra courage of not just speaking to the emotion, but the reason why, and in connection to like a piece, a dynamic that you want to shift, that you feel some maybe not so great feelings around.
Yeah, and that my desire actually is to be accountable for the way I show up, and to recognize whether or not I'm showing up in alignment with my highest truth, which is what's most authentic. And that we're human and we're going to mess up. Sometimes we're out of alignment.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's another piece, and I think it's mostly about accountability in that. It's not about being perfect. And I think I'm just gonna do a little tangent here to relate, because I've been navigating some things. Me as a consent educator and relationship coach, I often have people think that I'm perfect because of that.
Hmm.
And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a human. Like I will make mistakes, but I can never commit to not making mistakes. But what I can commit to is being accountable for the impact of my mistakes. What I can commit to is being accountable to my value system, which is one of vulnerability and choice-based relating. And what I can be is accountable to when I do mess up, and taking responsibility for that, and owning my responsibility in that.
Hmm.
And what I hear, and I think that's the key difference, is that that's what authenticity means to me, is being okay with all the different parts of ourselves that show up in all throughout the day in all of our relationships. And how do we hold space for those pieces and own as much as we can of our reality and what we need, and own how we impact other people in a healthy way, um, and not disregard any of ourselves, because I believe that's what creates violence, is when we don't accept any part of ourselves. That makes it easier to project that onto other people through judgment, shame, blame, and creates like ostracization, demonization, like discord, like disjunctured community. And
Hmm.
so why I love this opportunity of authenticity is the opportunity to actually love ourselves and love each other more, which I want in all of life.
Yes. My survival strategy for my whole life is was inauthentic, pretending that I'm fine. And I think this is very relatable. I think a lot of people do this, right? Is just pretending that I'm fine. And then um and then holding other people responsible and resenting them for not knowing that I'm not fine, and blaming them, right? And being a total victim about it. What?
How does
There's
that work?
no space for me to have any problems or to be upset. I'm just not allowed to do that. Nobody can hold me, you know? And then it took me most of my life to finally figure it out. Huh, I'm not actually giving anybody the opportunity to be there for me and what I'm authentically experiencing, because I'm hiding. And why was I telling people I was fine? Now mine was birthed out of trauma, right? The idea was ingrained into me as a belief I created as a child, was that if I was honest and authentic about my experience and about my pain, I might die. Like that's what it feels like, right? I'm gonna die. Like because the things that we rely on and depend on as kids, we, you know, if we lose our family, if we lose our house, if we lose the things that we that are keeping us secure and stable and healthy, right, that it could ultimately in our like reptilian brains result in death. So I developed this like hardcore reactive survival strategy to just never let anybody know that I had any problems, and it impacted my life greatly. And actually keeping secrets and hiding the truth of the pain that I carried and the grief that I held and the depression that I felt ultimately led to me having suicidal ideations and feeling completely alone. I mean, then my life really was at risk. And I was the one putting myself at risk because I was too afraid to claim what was authentic for me. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to be authentic. You know, some people go into caretaker, right? Like if I tell people my truth, they won't be able to handle it. So I'm going to make myself small. I'm going to hold back. I'm going to hide and keep secrets because I don't want them to be in reaction. And we end up taking responsibility for other people not being able to manage their reactions to what's authentic for us. And actually, we don't allow people the opportunity to connect with us, right? Because
Uh,
we're in our protection.
yeah.
Ah,
Oh, good. That's like all of it in a nutshell. That's such a beautiful example. Like, thank you for sharing that. And I do think a lot of people can connect to that. And I just love the distinction through that story of how the protection doesn't allow people to actually connect with you, and how the vulnerability and the courage of the vulnerability, the courage of the authenticity, actually, and owning that for yourself, not expecting other people to figure it out for you, owning that and then sharing that. And that in itself as an act of self-love and self-care, sharing that, and then people can make a decision, and then people can make the decision on if they have capacity and ableness to support you in that way or not. And then you can also have a collaboration, you know. And what I've encouraged people in the past when I'm supporting people or holding workshops around this is, no matter how you're received, in the least you're giving yourself permission to be real. And that in itself is a gift,
mhm.
because for myself, I know that when I don't give myself permission to be authentic, I feel like I'm doing violence upon myself. So just like the beauty of getting to own your authenticity and share it verbally with another person in itself is its own gift. So that first step is admitting it to yourself, and the second step is sharing it with another person, like getting to speak the words out loud and at least be seen. And then the next gift I would say is whatever, if they connect more through that, so they feel more connected to you, and if they're willing to support you in whatever way that you've requested around it. But those two are also their own pieces and their own gifts. I
Yeah,
just felt like share
I
that piece.
would also love to add to that that when people go into their own reaction, when you step into self love and authenticity and expressing that, even if they go into their own reaction, it's yes, it's a gift for you, and it's still a gift for them because they've been able to witness whether or not they can absorb it in that moment. Your authenticity has an impact on people that is healthy and positive, even if they're not able to receive it in that moment. Because when we show up with others in a way that's not authentic, and that's the person that they're interacting with, they're not one, you spoke to them getting to consent to how they show up in support of you. But if you're not bringing them something real, then what they're consenting to is actually not the truth. And in turn, it doesn't serve you, and it also doesn't serve them because they are not able, they're not given the opportunity to be in their authentic choice. Hmm. Yeah.
And I guess what I just want to encourage is, and even what I'm hearing you say right now, Bree, is like the message that I feel called to share in this is, at the end of the day, it probably serves more to embrace authenticity than not in all these examples.
Hmm.
Again, I really feel that the more we can have the courage to be authentic with ourselves and others, the more love and authentic connection we will experience. How, given that you know you kind of have this pattern, you know, this pattern of or a trauma related pattern of like not like depending on other people or asking other people for help when you might need it, because it still is something that you're working on even being available to because of how you were conditioned in ways.
Hmm.
um, is there a way, what could be the way, and is there a way that you can ask the people close to you to help you with that? Like, for example, when maybe you are in the pattern of like, no, I'm fine, it's fine. Like, is there a way that the people close to you could know warning signs of that, and that you can make a request of them to support you when they see maybe you're in that pattern?
Yeah, I'm kind of laughing because this is actually an assignment we held in a women's group that we kind of all co-created. And we had this, like, when you're feeling under resourced or need support, what are the signs to look for? And how do you like to be shown up for in that way? Can you express that now while you're not triggered, or while you are feeling resourced and replenished and in your grounded, healthy state? And I think that's an important time to have those conversations, because oftentimes when we're in that trauma response of, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'm going to do everything myself, we're really not able, our like rational brains shut off. We're in survival mode, survival strategies, and we're not actually able to communicate those things. So having the conversations ahead of time, like you just asked me now, is a great way to really be able to show up and support yourself by asking and making requests for people to support you in ways that you need, and the signs to look for when you may not recognize that you need support. And
Yeah.
for me, it really is. So a habit that I have is, I have gotten a lot better at asking for help, and then I don't allow myself to receive it. So
Oh,
I kind of have this pattern of being like, okay, I did a good job. I asked for help. And now I'm going to go back to exactly what I was doing before. Like, it's like a total bypass, right? I'm like, I did the thing. Okay, good. I'm good. I'm going to go struggle again. Right. Which is like ridiculous. So I have informed my loved ones that if I ask for help, that already feels like a stretch for me. And if I don't receive, or I then refuse the love, and I may be really tricky about it, I may say, just the fact, this is common, I may say, just the fact that you offered help and were willing to show up for me was good enough. Like, that makes me feel better, and now I'm capable. Poof. Right? Not true. I'm lying when I say that. I am lying. I'm selling myself out. Yeah, if you hear that from me, it's not true. That's another manipulative survival strategy I use to try and prove to myself that I'm capable, to try and prove to myself that I can be vulnerable and ask for help. And then I don't actually let any of it in, right? It's like total mind fuck with myself. So I've told people about that pattern. And I say, when I ask for help and then I don't receive it, I need you to just show up. I need you to just say, hey, you asked for this help, and I know you're saying you don't need it anymore, and I'm going to come help anyways.
mm,
And usually that works for me. That is like a very specific tool on help. Now, I think if we can get aware on like all the other ways we do that in different relations in our life, and different survival strategies that are very strong in us, and trauma responses that we can become aware of, and give those tools to our loved ones so that we can be supported better and provide them an opportunity to be supportive. Because I think ultimately that's what all of us want. Like, I want to be able to show up for you. how can I do that? Like, that's a gift for me to get to show up for you. How, give me the tools, give me the ways to win with you, Cyrena. Like, tell me your secrets so that I can be there for you in a way that feels good for both of us. Because I don't want to be there for you in a way that I think I should be there for you. I want to be there for in a way that you'll receive me as being there for you. And that'll feel good for you and me.
I love. Well, that's really good for me to know because I share some of my experience in being around you.
Yes.
Yeah, because I definitely like received that from you once, and I was just like, okay, that's good for me to note because now I know what that means, and now I know that that means you probably actually still need that help. And this is interesting because in an ideal world, we all do feel safe enough to say what we really need. But this, I'd say, is like actually a level even greater than that. It's actually being attuned to our trauma stories and working with them and inviting other people to work with us in them because that's still really hard. It's still really hard for a lot of people to say succinctly and clearly what they want. And Bre, what I just have so much tenderness for is like how courageous it is, and what I hear from you saying it is to even just speak it, and then you're like, okay, I did it, okay, now I'm gonna now I and what I hear in that actually in myself is the response after. I don't know if this is true for you, but sometimes for me it's a fear of what it would mean if these people don't follow through
Mm,
about me and their connection or care for me. So sometimes it's easier to be like not have any expectation because of the how devastating it would feel if like this person didn't follow through on the request. But again, like wanting to honor choice, like absolutely support other people's choice and whatever they're capable of, but it's like if someone said they will and then they don't, that's hard.
yeah.
That's also another hard thing. And can I share like an example that I offered to you? Another example of this, just like owning, and I think this is so beautiful because this is an opportunity again to be authentic and vulnerable. Is like, for example, Brie, my trauma of being excluded
Mm,
or being like ostracized or even demonized for who or how I am. And so, what I've really appreciated in exactly what you were just speaking to, like that you have desire to care for me in the way that works for me and vice versa. Like, that's like, oh my God, that makes me relax so much because I will share that in my experience with people who are more avoidant, which I can interface with a fair amount of avoidant people sometimes. They just don't want to do that. And so it's just so relaxing to hear that because that's exactly how I feel and what I want. Uh,
mm,
and so, I shared with you that. And then there was an instance that we navigated for quite a bit. But what I loved in it is that you share that I could potentially be included, but I might not. And that you just wanted to acknowledge that you are recognizing that I have that wound and you're wanting to be sensitive to that wound in sharing that information with me. And what that did for me is, again, as I've shared with you, felt like it really felt like I felt that care. And in that, I actually didn't care as much of if I was or was not included in that activity because I already felt so cared for in the acknowledgement of my experience or what might be my experience due to my wounding around that. So,
yeah.
and what I loved about it is it actually gave me more energy to respect boundaries. And I think that that's like a thing. Another piece here is like when we can tend to the authenticity. And what I even want to include here is like, you know, what's also painful for me is when I am authentic and I share those wounds and people still don't even acknowledge them.
Mm.
That I think is also another form of like bypassing or not fully acknowledging an authentic dynamic. And that makes me deeply uncomfortable because I don't feel like I'm, it feels like it creates all these stories in my head that I'm not connected to that person or they don't care about my experience. So I think that's another benefit of being authentic in that way of acknowledging someone's pain body in another dynamic. Because for me, again, what that enabled me to do is to be more able and willing to feel comfortable with people's boundaries. And one more thing I want to add with that, that's something I call a connection sandwich in my work. So you connect to the person, you say a boundary, and you connect to the person again. And it's like in that I see that as the connection piece of acknowledging the wound, saying whatever is real, and then again you could acknowledge whatever else, like thank you so much for your desire to hang out with me, I really value my connection to you, blah blah blah.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. And I'd love to add something. Uh, may I offer a suggestion on like another step that could be taken in that? I
Totally.
think in an ideal world, everyone would have beautiful conscious communication skills, and they would recognize how the importance of empathy and offering, like reflecting what you understand so you feel seen and heard in what you just shared so vulnerably and authentically. And it could also be an added piece of authentic information to offer others, that say that where you could include what I just shared feels very vulnerable and it's very authentic for me, and it's a stretch for me to show up this authentically. And what would feel really good to me is if you could reflect what you heard me say and offer empathy. Are you available for that? because because if you're not, I have to be mindful that my response to not receiving empathy after I share something so vulnerable and authentic, that I may then start to pull away or step into my own defense or protection or whatever it is. And what I'm truly desiring in sharing this authentic piece of me is deeper connection.
Yes.
And these are like, this is like black belt communicating. Again, like you said, I'm not a perfect, consent specialist. I do make mistakes. It's the same thing for me, right? I mean, I have a lot of information and skills and tools, and I try my best to practice all of these conversations. It doesn't necessarily come out that way in the moment, but they're great reminders to keep having these conversations and listening to these webinars and getting in our heads that we are at choice to do things differently and to get back in the driver's seat and not let our trauma and our wounds and our survival strategies drive the car, right? That we get to do that. And we are always at choice.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe with that is we can kind of close out this topic. um yeah, Bre, I so value hearing all of how just again the words you speak and how you how you discuss your experience and how you relate to me and sharing my experience. I deeply value you and how you show up in the world, and feel like very honored to get to have you here. I'm going to let you talk about yourself and what you do right now, and then I'll share a little bit more about what I'm doing.
Yeah, and also just to offer gratitude to you, Cyrena, for inviting me and valuing me enough to have me on as this amazing opportunity to discuss topics that I advocate for, that I encourage, and hope to bring out in the clients that I work with through my coaching business. I really do really hope that you connect with me. I am here to like see you and hold you, and also just help us all step into the freedom of expression and the liberation that we can experience through loving ourselves enough to have the courage to dive into those messy, traumatic, wounded places in ourselves so that we can take back our lives in very empowered ways and show up in relationship, in family, in work, in ways that will create deeper connections, which with ourselves and with others, which is ultimately what I hope to be bringing to the world. So thank you for being with us here. And I look forward to doing another series. This was so nourishing for me as well. And reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram at Bre Reilly.
And I also similarly have similar goals in the world, and there are different ways in which I'm offering things that help promote that. So one of them is my erotic vulnerability events, and I have one tonight actually, and that is themed fear. So this is perfect transition into tonight, which is authenticity. So what do you fear in relationships, and what helps you to navigate that in fulfilling ways in your intimate and beyond relationships? And that's a speed dating experience, but also it's a way to cultivate like-minded community. Moreover, I have my empowered relationships course coming up, and I'm holding a men's and a women's container simultaneous, and similarly do relationship and intimacy coaching. So feel free to reach out to me as well if any of those things are interesting to you. And at some point, I'm going to get Bree in on that because I feel she'll just add to all of it. So,
Thank you for your beautiful author offerings. You are a genius at the work that you do. Let's change the world, baby.
woo, we're doing it.
Thank you for being us here with us here today. We appreciate all of you, sending you tons of love.